Elena Gilbert's life is a haunting tale of love, loss, and unending pain. From the very beginning, her world was marked by tragedy, a relentless series of events that slowly chipped away at her innocence. Behind her bright smiles and determined spirit, there was a heart burdened with grief, a young woman forced to navigate the darkness that fate cruelly thrust upon her. Her story is not just one of romance or supernatural entanglement, it is the story of a soul enduring unimaginable suffering, shaping her into the person she would eventually become. The early loss of her parents created a vacuum in Elena's life that no amount of love or comfort could fill. She was thrust into a world of uncertainty, constantly seeking stability and a sense of belonging. This loss planted the seeds of fear and loneliness that would follow her throughout her formative years, affecting the way she trusted, loved, and even forgave. Each smile she shared hid the pain she carried silently within her, a pain that would grow more complex as her life continued to unravel. As Elena navigated adolescence, she became entangled in the supernatural world of Mystic Falls, a place where danger lurked around every corner and death was an ever-present shadow. Her heart, fragile yet brave, was repeatedly tested by the threats of vampires, witches, and other dark forces. Every choice she made, every love she embraced, seemed to pull her further into a vortex of tragedy, forcing her to grow up faster than anyone should. It is in this relentless struggle that we see the shaping of her character, a mix of resilience, vulnerability, and an inevitable hardening of her heart. Each betrayal, each loss, left deep scars, slowly changing her from the bright, hopeful girl into someone who learned to shield her heart, to fight with every ounce of strength even when the cost was her own happiness. These experiences were transformative, and though they hardened her in some ways, they also revealed a depth of compassion and courage few could comprehend. In exploring Elena Gilbert's tragic life, we are not merely recounting supernatural battles or romantic entanglements, we are witnessing the psychological and emotional toll of relentless suffering. Every hardship, every heartbreak, every moment of loss contributed to the woman she became, strong, sometimes cold, but profoundly human. Her story is a testament to endurance, and to the quiet, often invisible battles that shape our very souls. It is a story that asks us to empathize with pain, to understand how tragedy can mold us, and to remember that even in darkness, resilience can shine. 1. Loss of her parents. Elena's pain began with the tragic loss of her parents, leaving her orphaned at a young age. This foundational trauma shaped her understanding of love, safety, and trust. She was forced into a world where stability was a luxury she could not afford. Each memory of her parents became both a source of comfort and a piercing reminder of what she had lost. This loss also created a void in Elena's emotional development. She sought familial love in others, craving protection and guidance, but never fully finding it. Her interactions with friends and love interests were colored by a deep, underlying fear of abandonment. The pain of losing her parents became a silent undercurrent in every relationship, influencing the way she loved and trusted. Moreover, being orphaned thrust Elena into early independence, forcing her to navigate life without the safety net that most teenagers take for granted. Her struggles were both practical and emotional, she had to manage grief, fear, and responsibility all at once. This premature adulthood instilled resilience but also left scars that never fully healed. Elena's coping mechanisms were a mix of denial, courage, and occasional recklessness. She attempted to maintain normalcy while hiding the depth of her grief. However, this coping often placed her in dangerous situations, both emotionally and physically, as she sought connection and meaning in a world that seemed indifferent to her suffering. Ultimately, the loss of her parents was not just an event, it was a catalyst for the lifelong struggles that followed. It was a wound that never fully healed, defining the way Elena approached love, loss, and life itself. This foundational tragedy cast a long shadow over her entire existence, shaping her path in ways both subtle and profound. 2. The doppelganger curse. Elena's existence as Catherine's doppelganger became a source of immense suffering. She was constantly reminded of a predecessor whose life was marked by danger and manipulation. This connection to Catherine exposed her to supernatural threats she never asked for and placed her in situations where her identity was constantly challenged. The comparison to Catherine created inner conflict. Elena struggled with self-worth, often feeling like a reflection of someone else rather than a person in her own right. This duality made it difficult for her to fully embrace her identity and created a sense of alienation. She was haunted by the expectation to live up to or diverge from Catherine's dark legacy, a burden no one should bear. Being a doppelganger also made Elena a target for enemies. Vampires, witches, and other supernatural beings were drawn to her because of this connection, endangering her life and the lives of those she loved. Her every choice was scrutinized, her freedom restricted by forces beyond her control. This constant danger amplified her feelings of helplessness and vulnerability. Emotionally, the doppelganger curse forced Elena to confront her own mortality repeatedly. She witnessed lives being destroyed because of her existence, leading to guilt and a sense of inevitability about suffering. It shaped her into someone cautious, sometimes cold, and always prepared for betrayal or tragedy. Ultimately, this burden transformed Elena, teaching her both resilience and caution. While it hardened certain aspects of her personality, it also highlighted her capacity for courage and selflessness. Through the pain of being a doppelganger, Elena's humanity was tested and her emotional depth expanded, making her story one of profound tragedy and enduring strength. 3. Witnessing loved ones die. Elena faced the agony of seeing friends and family die, often helplessly. Each loss compounded her grief, teaching her that even the people she loved most could be ripped away. The pain of watching lives end, especially in violent or tragic circumstances, left emotional scars that never fully healed. The repeated exposure to death forced Elena to grow up quickly. She learned to manage grief while continuing to protect others, balancing survival with emotional vulnerability. This constant pressure shaped her into a resilient yet cautious individual. Every loss carried guilt and self-blame. Elena questioned whether she could have done more to prevent tragedy, leaving her with a heavy psychological burden. This pattern of internalizing blame shaped her personality, often making her overly cautious and self-sacrificing. Witnessing death also forced her to confront her own mortality repeatedly. Each encounter with danger reminded her that life was fragile, instilling both fear and determination. Elena learned to navigate a world where death lurked around every corner, and this awareness changed her deeply. Ultimately, these experiences created a woman who was empathetic but guarded. She understood the value of life and the pain of loss in ways few could, shaping her identity as someone who could endure immense suffering while still caring for others. 4. Romantic heartbreaks. Love in Elena's life was often intertwined with tragedy. Her relationships, particularly with the Salvatore brothers, were filled with passion but also immense pain. Every bond she formed was shadowed by danger, loss, and impossible choices, leaving her heart fractured repeatedly. Her romantic experiences taught her the weight of sacrifice. Loving someone often meant risking her life or enduring emotional torment. Each heartbreak deepened her understanding of vulnerability and courage, as well as the cost of attachment. Elena's heartache was compounded by feelings of guilt. She constantly wondered if her love caused suffering for those she cared about, adding a layer of self-reproach to her emotional wounds. This introspection often made her hesitant, protective, and wary in future relationships. The intensity of her love also heightened the pain of separation. Moments of joy were fleeting, followed by anguish when fate intervened. This cycle of attachment and loss created a bittersweet reality, teaching Elena that love could be both a source of comfort and a weapon of suffering. Ultimately, heartbreak shaped Elena's emotional depth. She learned to balance passion with caution, empathy with self-preservation. Her romantic tragedies were central to her evolution, molding her into a complex figure capable of profound love yet marked by sorrow. 5. Supernatural threats constantly looming. Elena's life was never free from danger. Living in Mystic Falls meant she constantly faced threats from vampires, witches, and other supernatural beings. Every day could bring a life-or-death situation, creating an unrelenting sense of tension and fear. This constant threat forced Elena to grow up quickly. She developed quick thinking, courage, and strategic awareness, but the perpetual danger also left her emotionally exhausted. Living in a state of vigilance became second nature, shaping her cautious and sometimes cold demeanor. The psychological toll of constant threats was immense. Elena often experienced anxiety, fear, and helplessness, particularly when she could not protect those she loved. This chronic stress shaped her resilience, but it also made her wary of forming attachments. Supernatural danger also limited her freedom. Every decision, every movement, was influenced by the potential for harm. This constant pressure made normal teenage experiences difficult, robbing her of a carefree youth and replacing it with a heavy sense of responsibility. Ultimately, the omnipresent supernatural threats defined Elena's early life. They forced her to confront mortality, develop strength, and understand the harsh realities of the world she lived in. While they hardened her, they also showcased her bravery and selflessness in the face of relentless danger. 6. Being forced to make impossible choices. Elena was often confronted with decisions that carried severe consequences, where no choice seemed safe or fair. These moments tested her morality, courage, and emotional resilience, often leaving her trapped between love, duty, and survival. Making impossible choices shaped Elena's maturity beyond her years. She had to weigh risks, assess the impact on those around her, and sometimes sacrifice her own happiness for the greater good. This constant responsibility added emotional weight and deepened her sense of isolation. These choices also brought guilt and self-blame. Even when acting with the best intentions, Elena often questioned whether she had made the right decision. The fear of harming loved ones unintentionally haunted her, creating inner turmoil and a profound sense of responsibility. The repeated need to make impossible choices forced Elena to reconcile her personal desires with her obligations. This tension became a defining element of her character, blending courage with sorrow, wisdom with vulnerability. Ultimately, these experiences honed Elena's strength but also left lasting emotional scars. Her journey through impossible decisions shaped her identity as someone capable of sacrifice, empathy, and endurance, even when it meant suffering personally. 7. Conflicted love with the Salvatore brothers. Elena's heart was torn between Stefan and Damon Salvatore, two brothers who represented vastly different paths of love and danger. Her affection for both was genuine, yet the circumstances surrounding them complicated her feelings, leaving her emotionally exhausted and often guilt-ridden. This conflict placed Elena in a constant state of emotional turmoil. She struggled to reconcile her heart's desires with the safety and moral implications of her choices. Each decision seemed to carry repercussions not only for herself but for the people she loved, intensifying her inner struggle. The love triangle heightened her vulnerability. Elena often felt trapped, as every choice could potentially hurt someone she cared for deeply. She bore the emotional weight of both brothers' expectations and the consequences of her own feelings, a burden no one should have to carry at such a young age. Her conflicted love also exposed her to jealousy, tension, and danger. Both brothers' histories and supernatural lives amplified the stakes of every interaction, making every moment of intimacy or decision fraught with peril. The intensity of this love made heartbreak inevitable, magnifying her emotional suffering. Ultimately, the struggle between Stefan and Damon shaped Elena's maturity, empathy, and emotional depth. She learned to navigate complex feelings, make difficult choices, and endure heartbreak, all while maintaining her integrity and compassion despite the turmoil. 8. Dealing with Catherine Pierce. Elena's life was constantly overshadowed by Catherine Pierce, her cunning and ruthless doppelganger. Catherine repeatedly schemed to manipulate, deceive, and harm Elena, using her resemblance to exploit situations for her own gain. Living under Catherine's shadow forced Elena to fight for her identity and protect herself from a relentless adversary determined to ruin her life. Catherine's schemes put Elena in constant danger. From manipulating friends and allies to putting her in life-threatening situations, Catherine's actions created chaos in every aspect of Elena's world. Each encounter tested Elena's vigilance and strategy, forcing her to anticipate betrayal and stay one step ahead of her doppelganger. Emotionally, Catherine's constant interference bred fear and distrust. Elena could never be fully sure of who to trust, as Catherine often twisted relationships and sowed doubt among those closest to her. The psychological toll of dealing with someone so cunning and merciless was immense, leaving Elena constantly on edge. Catherine also amplified Elena's insecurities. Her manipulations made Elena question her worth, her identity, and whether she could ever be seen as her own person rather than a reflection of Catherine. Overcoming this psychological warfare required immense courage and emotional resilience. Ultimately, facing Catherine Pierce shaped Elena's strength, intelligence, and independence. While the constant attacks left lasting emotional scars, they also reinforced her determination to stand firm in her identity and resist the manipulations of someone who sought to destroy her life. Elena Gilbert's life was a storm of unending trials, where every choice seemed to demand a piece of her soul. She faced unimaginable loss, endured betrayal, and stood toe-to-toe with dangers most could never imagine. Yet, through all the darkness, she carried a quiet strength, a resilience that refused to be broken and a heart that, despite everything, never stopped caring. Her journey was a testament to the cost of survival. Elena sacrificed innocence, love, and comfort to protect those she cherished, often putting herself at the center of pain. Every hardship, every tear, and every sleepless night shaped her into someone who could endure what most would flee from, proving that true bravery is forged in the crucible of suffering. Even in her hardest moments, Elena taught us about the fragility and power of the human spirit. She experienced heartbreak and fear, yet never let them define her. Each scar she carried, visible or hidden, was a story of endurance, a reminder that surviving tragedy requires both courage and compassion. Her life reminds us that strength is not measured by victories alone but by the grace with which we bear loss and continue forward. Elena's struggles, though deeply tragic, highlight the resilience of those who refuse to surrender to pain, who continue to fight even when the world seems determined to break them. In the end, Elena Gilbert's story leaves a lasting imprint, a haunting, beautiful narrative of growth through suffering. She shows us that even amidst darkness, one can emerge stronger, wiser, and more compassionate, an enduring legacy of courage born from tragedy.